Welcome into the 87th episode of the Sabremetrix podcast. My name is Bill. Alongside me, as always, is Walt. Walt, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good. Looking forward to talking about the latest in the Buffalo Sabres world.
Happy 1 month to the season opener on October 9th. Sabres open up against the New York Rangers. Walt, before we get into anything exciting, we do have a jam-packed show, so we have to get to it quickly. But how excited are you? It's September and the little fall weather. Bills are finally playing. Sabres are coming up. How you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every Sabres season at this point just feels like deja vu. I feel like I have the same feelings going into the Prospects Challenge, and then it leads into the preseason and then the regular season, where it's like I'm excited for everything to be new again, but I'm not that hopeful. But you know, I think every time, every season, just comes with a fresh slate and anything can happen. So I think I always have that mindset in the back of my mind where it's like, what if like Josh Doan turns into like a superstar or something? Like, what if like Peyton Krebs becomes a second line center? Like, what if one of these things happens and the Sabres are fun? Like, it would be a dream scenario, but that thought's always in the back of my head.
For sure. It's definitely a fresh slate, like you said, but I'm curious to see once adversity hits, is it more of a mood of here we go again and things start to crumble, or can they rise above that and really make it an interesting season? So, like I said, we have a very jam-packed episode. We're going to try to get to things as quickly as possible. First things first, this week is the Prospects Challenge, and the roster was released, and wanted to pull that up and ask you, Walt, who's specifically on this roster. I'm sorry if it's a little tough for people to see on YouTube. If you're listening audio wise, good time to go over to the YouTube page, subscribe, and check it out. But have it pulled up here. And who are you looking at specifically in this tournament? It is a preseason tournament just for prospects, but first action of guys playing in the Sabres uniform this season. Who are you looking at? And what are you looking for specifically in a prospects challenge game?
Yeah, I think the Sabres have a pretty fun roster this year. Like, I think there's a bunch of guys that should be interesting to watch. I think, just starting with the goalies too, I feel like all four goalies there will be pretty interesting to watch because all of them are like actual Sabres
Yeah.
prospects, like drafted prospects. There's no invites there. So each of those guys should all get some game action. Uh, Defense too. I think defense is really fun as well. I mean, when was the last time we had like a fun defense at a Sabres prospects challenge in terms of depth? Like they have, the two Russians and Novikov and Komarov. Bedkowski, a very physical player they picked in the third round this past draft. He should be fun to watch. And Radim Murka, he looked great internationally for the Czechia U20 team a few weeks ago, or I think even just last week. So he's going to be another really fun one to watch for the first time in a Sabres uniform. He's also wearing number 57. I think he's paying homage to the great Tyler Myers, similar sized defenseman to Merca. So that's pretty cool to see. And then that forward group too. I mean, you have some familiar names in Rosane, Osland. So you'll have those guys there. Wahlberg once again will be there. And then I think the interesting part of the forward group is some of the USHL guys because we don't always see the USHL guys playing this prospects challenge because their season is starting soon, and it seemed to be the case in past prospects challenges that those players usually would just start things off with their USHL team and not come to this rookie camp. But I don't know if things have changed a little bit with the NCAA rules because a lot of these guys are NCAA commits, so maybe things change there. But all those guys are here. So you have Ashton Schultz, who's a really fun hockey player. He'll be playing for the Chicago Steel this season. He'll be heading to North Dakota the season after. He's going to be a really fun guy to watch, a lot of skill. And I mean, then you have guys like Kucharsik. He'll be playing for Youngstown. Didn't have a crazy amount of points in the Czechia U20 league last season, but he's a fun all-around player to watch. Melvin Novotny, he's a UMass commit. He'll be playing for Muskegon this season. He'll be another USHL guy. It's fun to watch. And then last but not least, Ryan Ruchinski. He'll be playing for Youngstown once again. And I think Youngstown's a great place for any prospect to develop in the USHL now. Like we saw Luke Osborne had a really good developmental season there. So that's always a good place for him to be. And I think those four guys, since they're on the younger end, they're probably just going to be in those depth roles. So we may not see too much of them, but they'll be interesting players to watch. And I think up and down the lineup, the Sabres team will be, just overall interesting to watch.
Yes, and I think it's going to be quite the weekend for some good hockey down at the Harbor Center, and really looking forward to seeing how a couple specific players. But first off, the first thing that came to my mind was that's a massive defense. Yeah,
Yeah.
Butkowski 6'5", over 220. You got Murtka 6'6". You got Novikov 6'4", big old Russian fella. It's very interesting to me seeing Isaac Rosan in this.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I didn't even think about that. That is
it's
kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone that we were pushing for, like, hey man, you got to make a statement on the Sabres. This is the last season. Now you're playing in the Prospects Challenge this season. So anyone that's looking for Rosan to maybe grab a roster spot, I mean, he's really going to have to show it starting here and then throughout training camp and preseason games. So feels like he has quite a mountain to climb to make the Sabres lineup, which we will be going over some of our projections for the Sabres lineup. And then the other person is Anton Wahlberg. Really just want to see him just play a mature game. Really just want him to just look like a leader. He doesn't have to be the rah-rah leader, but he's got the frame. He's played a full season with Rochester last season. I think that's someone that I'm really looking for just to kind of set the tone for the Sabres, maybe calm guys down with just simple plays. And, some of the younger guys probably want to make an impression, but if they see someone like Anton Wahlberg going out there just doing his job, contributing a little bit obviously would be nice as well, but just looking as a good puck transporting and making good decisions center, with his size and speed that he has with that size would be good to see this coming weekend. So, and then I also thought it was interesting that they have four goalies. I believe they play 3 games, so interesting going to see that split there. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to the Prospects Challenge. I really don't put too much stock into it, but I think the one thing that I want to mention before we get on to our next section is who is going to set a tone, not only in the Prospects Challenge, but in training camp and in preseason games. Who's going to be the person or persons? Is it going to be specific players? Is it going to be maybe the coaching staff? Guys make a mistake and they say, "Hey, you're going to sit for a little bit, even if it's in a preseason game or something like that." Is it going to be players going out there trying to bring their teammates into the fight and trying to elevate their teammates' games with their own play? And so that's something I'm really looking forward to, not only in this Prospects Challenge, it does set a good tone, but going forward. And then if you're looking for a team to be more physical, more nasty, and stuff like that, say it's a pretty good start with that defense that they're bringing to the tournament. So really looking forward to that. Anything else Prospects Challenge wise that you wanted to mention? Maybe, I don't know, another team that could be bringing a prospect or two that you're looking forward to. I know I'm springing this one on you randomly. So if not, then we'll keep it pushing.
I'm trying to think like who the other teams at this are. I mean, I know James Higgins won't be there for Boston. He's in college, so that's kind of a bummer. But uh, it has been fun watching. Like I remember Slavkovsky played his first game in a Montreal uniform at this, and
Yep.
I was at that one. And then Jack Hughes first game in the New Jersey uniform was in Buffalo during this. So it's always cool to see even the games from guys on the other teams as well. Because a lot of these guys, like even some of the like the later round picks, is cool to kind of get a viewing of these guys before they start their pro careers and before some of them start pushing for roster spots. So always a fun event to attend, and it's great to like continue to have this event in Buffalo.
Definitely glad that they do have this in Buffalo. It gives not only the players to be able to, stay here and play here, but it's kind of like free scouting. Get some scouts, throw them up in the press box in the Harbor Center, and they get to sleep in their own bed at night. So that's pretty nice. Um, excuse me. The teams involved are New Jersey, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Boston, and Buffalo. Obviously, if I'm seeing this correctly, Buffalo does not play Boston, which is interesting. They play New Jersey on Friday at 7 p.m., Columbus on Saturday at 7 p.m., and then Pittsburgh on Monday at 12 p.m., which they always have a Monday game at 12 p.m., which is always a bummer. But there's a couple chances to go see the Buffalo Sabres out there. Obviously, on Sunday, they're not playing because of the Bills, I would assume. So that it's always interesting to see, packed house for the Sabres, and then you get, Columbus versus Pittsburgh, and there's like 35 people there. Shout out to those
Yeah.
people that showed up, but it's
Those
yeah,
are the
it's
games to go to, honestly. Like if you're looking for like just a relaxing
yeah.
3 hours of hockey, I recommend going to like a Columbus Pittsburgh game.
There you go. All right, so there's some weekend plans for you guys if you're not doing anything else. So that is the Sabres Prospect Challenge. We are going to shift gears here to something we've been actually teasing for a couple weeks now. Past couple episodes, our lineup projections. And for me specifically, I'm going with what I think they'll roll out with at least the first couple of games, and then obviously things can change from there. And we are going to maybe give our take on things. Since I've been chatting a little bit, I'm going to actually let Walt go first and explain his lineup. Again, for people listening, we will say which each line and everything like that, but also feel free to go check this out on YouTube so you can visually see it because these are via Puckpedia. And Walt's lineup, actually, you know what? I'm going to change it to. I couldn't make it a little bit bigger, but Walt, if you wanted to go over your lineup here and explain what you're thinking forwards and defense wise.
Yeah, so I mean that top line, I'm going Tage on the left wing, centered by Kulik with Tuch on the right wing. I think for me, I think if you want a guy like Kulik on the top line, I think you make his job as easy as possible and give him the Sabres' two best wingers. And we've seen Tage and Tuch work incredibly together in the past. And, I think Sabres have, enough depth to make that thing work where they're able to put Tage and Tuch on the same line. So that's kind of my thinking for that top line. Second line, I'm going Benson, Norris, and Doan. This one, I guess my main concern with it is, the finishing ability of Benson and Doan. Like Norris is an
Yeah.
elite finisher. Benson and Doan both drive a crazy amount of offense but can't finish. Norris barely drives any offense. So I guess my overall thing with this line was that you have like an elite shooter paired with two guys who could really get the pucks to dangerous areas. So, maybe they'll help Norris's overall game where he's not just relying on that shot, where he's able to get the puck in more dangerous areas. And Benson's a pretty good puck distributor, and he gets pucks to dangerous areas. So, no, maybe if there's a lot of chaos being caused with Benson and the threat of Norris's shot, maybe that opens things up for Josh Doan to work on his finishing. I just think Doan's a guy who I think he can play higher up the lineup, and I'd really like to see him higher up the lineup. So that's another one of the reasons why I tossed him in that second line role. Third line, I mean, some familiar names here. I have Jason Zucker as a left wing on this line, Ryan McLeod at center, and then Jack Quinn. He's kind of like that guy where every year when you're filling out your projected lineup, you're just struggling to find a spot to put him. And he's not a fourth liner, so might as well throw him here. I think it's a good spot for him as well because we've seen like McLeod and Zucker, they both play, pretty effective hockey, and they played a lot of minutes together as well. So I think for someone like Jack Quinn who's looking for a bounce back season, I think throwing him into a more comfortable role with a line with two guys who have experience with each other is a way to go here. So that's my third line. Fourth line, Jordan Greenway, the $4 million fourth liner. I don't really want to see him higher than like the third or fourth line. And I just think if you want to not have Quinn on the fourth line, he has to be on that third line. And just looking at the 9 names above him, it's hard to, find a pathway where he does break in that top 9. So he's my left winger on the fourth line. Center on that line is Peyton Krebs. And then a right wing at Beck Malenstein. I can see like Danforth breaking into this lineup every once in a while. I just put Malenstein there because, I feel like he's not horrible. I feel like sometimes, people think he's worse than he is because, that trade for him was, pretty awful. And Sam Lafferty, they also add to that fourth line at the same time, was awful last season. So I think Malenstein takes a lot of blame sometimes, but he's really not an awful player. Like, he's like a fine fourth liner, so I'll just throw him there. And defense, I feel like this is probably the defense everyone has right now. Of
Yeah.
Dahlin paired with Byram, paired with Kesslering, Samuelson paired with Timmins, and then goalie obviously UPL starter Alex Lyon as the backup.
Yeah, I couldn't really grab the goalies on those screenshots, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a mix of realistic, but also putting your own spin on it. Um, and I can definitely see that being a lineup that they go with, or at least one that they might shift to if the correct one, which is my lineup, isn't actually the one that's used. Of course, I'm kidding, but wanted to pull this up anyway. I'll go quickly through mine. First line: Zach Benson, Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch. Seems like that's something they just would be most comfortable with, and I'm probably going with what is most probably comfortable for them. I mean, obviously, everyone will have an opinion on that. So, first line: Benson, Thompson, Tuch. Something they've seen work before. I know Cooley can kind of work in there as well, but that's what I'm going with. Not a huge fan of them putting up Benson on the first line. I've been a very much like, you're asking too much of this kid, but if it works, it works for Thompson and Tuch, and Benson kind of needs to be that guy that might not put as much points up, but he's there causing chaos and helping the others. Fine, fair enough. Second line: Yuri Kulik, Josh Norris, and Jack Quinn. This is the one I just called this the shooter's line. I didn't really know what else to do. Like you said, Jack Quinn, you don't really know where to put him. Yuri Kulik, I could see playing center. But my thought is, when it comes to comfort wise, you have Thompson and Norris that have been in the league and played center multiple years. I understand Thompson didn't last year as much, but Kulik is one of those guys. We can't put him at center, no problem. But let's start him off on the wing, and then if we need to, kind of break in case of emergency kind of thing, and they want to switch stuff up and put Thompson on the wing and maybe bump Benson off that line or something like that. Third line: Jason Zucker, Ryan McLeod, self-explanatory. Josh Doan, I could see him going on the second line, kind of like you had him. I could definitely see that switch between Quinn and Doan. I just have him on a third just for now. Set expectations a little bit lower and then let him kind of grow into playing with the team. Like you said, and like we've mentioned before, good underlying numbers. If he could just pick up the finishing, not only would that be good for Josh Doan, but that would be good for that line. Not super confident that Jason Zucker can repeat what he did last season because it was a very good season for him, and he's getting a little bit older. And again, happy he resigned. He's a good guy to have, but I could see it falling off a little bit. And then fourth line, just Greenway, Krebs, and Danforth. I've been vocal about Greenway being a fourth line player. Nothing wrong with that. He would be a very effective fourth line player, especially when he's healthy. Peyton Krebs, we've seen them do it before. They feel like they'll run it back. And then Danforth, I have him over Malenstein simply because they specifically brought him in. They hyped him up. He has a little bit more NHL experience under his belt. Um, I understand what you were saying about Malenstein too. I'm not blaming him. He just kind of, I don't really know where to fit him in the lineup. And it's hockey. Always going to be injuries. He'll find his way into the lineup. Not too worried about that. Defense, same as yours. Darlene Byram, Power, Kesselring, and Samuelson, Timmins, UPL, and Lyon. Excuse me, the goalies are right there. I don't know what I was talking about earlier. I was thinking about goalie depth when it comes to like Levi and other stuff, and some of the other players that weren't necessarily listed on this, like a Roseanne. How to get them to show them that we had them possibly, right outside the lineup. Didn't work out that way. But yeah, UPL, Alex Lyon, let Levi, Cook, and Rochester, Bryson, Jones as your scratches. I don't really know, besides Malstein, I don't really know who they actually plan on having in the press box, but not super important there. So that's what I think they will do. If it was up to me, I would probably change it up a little bit to look a little more like yours. Maybe have Benson on the second line and maybe bump Kulik up and maybe switch Quinn and Doan as well. But I mean, like you said, they do have the depth. It's I think the overall high octane talent. Like the first line isn't really like an NHL first line. Like, they're good for
Yeah.
sure, but, like, the second line's like, is it really, an NHL second line? I
No.
don't think it's too far off, but I don't think it is. Like, I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it's
don't think so.
crazy. Third line,
Yeah,
that's a
third
good
line's
third line.
good.
Fourth line, that's a good
Yeah.
fourth line, but, like, really, it's kind of like a, high ceiling or a low ceiling, high floor, excuse me. And then defense is very good too. So really hoping that Byram and Dahlin can pop off and have an offensive output. Own power, obviously, hopefully that works out with Kesselring, and we will be getting into own power in a bit. So those are our projected lineups. Walt, is there anything that you wanted to comment on mine or just in general when it comes to the lineup for this upcoming season?
I mean, I think when that first lineup comes out, or like when we start seeing lines in training camp, it's going to be interesting because I really don't know what to expect. Like we kind of saw how they ended last season, but they do have some new faces there. Obviously, with Paterka gone and Doan coming in, so it'll be interesting to see what they do because there's going to be, I think, some surprise names in the top six, and obviously with Tage, will he play center? Will he not play center? I think there's kind of this thing where I don't really know how it became a thing, but people think Tage played better on the wing. He's played pretty good at center too. I feel like he's just good everywhere. And I
Yeah,
believe he did say last season that he does prefer playing center. So it'll be interesting to see where they place him this season.
definitely. I mean, you've heard me say it before, and I think we even talked about it pre-show. But Tage, even if he's on the wing, he's such a. You can see he is most comfortable traveling up the center of the ice with the puck on his stick. He's got those long strides. He can, take 2 strides and he's goes blue line to blue line. It's insane. So, yeah, I mean, when it comes to being a center or playing through the center, those could be 2 different things for him, but that's why I had him as a center because I think they're like, "Look, let's get you back there, Tuck on your wing and Benson on your other, and go from there." So, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they roll out as well. It is a little tough, especially when they have, like, maybe 1 or 2 total lines full of NHL players in the preseason, then, like, the bottom 2 lines are, AHL
Yeah.
guys, but once that starts getting really cut down, those last couple preseason games, things start to really take shape, that's where I'm really gonna be looking and paying attention to that. Before we get to our next section, I would like to apologize. Should have mentioned this off the top. We will be doing a live stream for the home opener. So I'm hoping everyone is around and able to join us. We're just going to hang out, chat up. We're going to be very silent and listening for when they are announcing certain people in the Sabres organization and how the crowd reacts. Walt, I know you said you won't be there for like the first time in how many years. And I will be right here next year. So wanted to announce that and let people know to come hang out. It's gonna be a lot of fun. We had a really good time doing it during the playoffs, but wasn't Sabres related. So now that we have something to talk Sabres related on a live stream, I'm really looking forward to it. So, Walt, anything else before we get on to some specific players and some topics to talk about them?
Yeah, it should be a fun time, just watching the Sabres. Like, yeah, like you said, our first kind of Sabres related game stream. So, home opener, it sets the tone for the entire season. I know people are like, it's game one out of 82, but I was someone that was yelling on Twitter after they didn't show up against the Rangers that one year and being like,
Yeah,
if they don't show up here, what's this whole season gonna look like? And everyone's like, calm down, man. And then the season was a disaster. So I think coming out the gates in this first game and just playing a solid hockey game is huge. And they're opening up against the Rangers. That's a team who they've beaten pretty handedly recently. Like they've lit up Shesterkin in some games. So, hopefully they're able to come out the gates hot in that one.
definitely. Definitely. I think it, and it's surprisingly so. Obviously, Shusterkin is such a good goaltender, but they've done it at MSG too. I have a
Yeah.
buddy that's a Rangers fan. How does that feel? How's that feel losing to the Sabres? So yeah, he's never too happy about that. But actually, before we get to a couple specific player updates, forgot a section that we were doing. Like I said, jam packed show. Jay Fresh, pretty much everyone knows who we're talking about. But if not, um, man, how would you even describe Jay Fresh on Twitter? Obviously, he's part of the hockey Twitter community. But what specifically for someone that has no idea who Jay Fresh is? How would you describe them or him? Excuse me.
I think he really made analytics like kind of more mainstream and like hockey social media. So he's done a really good job with graphics. Like he collabs with Patrick Bacon and uses his model, and they kind of make these graphics that kind of made hockey analytics more mainstream. Like I think things go back like way further than that when we had the old charts with like the bars for like time on ice and whatnot way back when. And I think this is just kind of the modern iteration of it. And it's cool to see because I feel like hockey analytics as a whole before JFresh kind of came along, it was kind of like frowned upon a lot of times. Like I think a lot of people were less willing to hear like an opinion that was analytics based, like Rasmus Ristolainen is bad for the Sabres. Like I remember, that statement at the time seemed crazy, and it seemed crazy to me too when he was a young player. And then like the
Yeah.
further along he got in his career, it seemed like, oh wow, maybe there's something to this. So yeah, I think JFresh, I think just with his graphics, just with his, personality, I think he's really done a good job making hockey analytics more mainstream and easier to access for everyone too.
Easier to access, the graphics look really good too. It's, easy to comprehend in that sense too. So, yeah, that is Jay Fresh. And let's pull up. He made some waves actually on Sabres Twitter, and it was exciting to see. I know for me, specifically in the offseason, I've done made a concerted effort, kind of stay off Twitter and social media in that sense, and, kind of fresh palette for the Sabres and not get caught up in that stuff. So I'm feeling pretty good about the Sabres season coming up, like you said, and hopefully it doesn't go too stale too quickly. But anyway, let's get right to it. Jay Fresh and his prediction, whatever kind of model he's using, he has the Buffalo Sabres making the playoffs next season. Walt, I'm going to give you the floor. Like I said many times already, for people just listening, we have the projections up here. Has the Sabres making the playoffs with 93 points. They're the second to last. They would technically be the first wild card team, I guess they would be. Or excuse me, the second wild card team is what Jay Fresh has them as. Excuse me. So that's what we're looking at here. But Walt, wanted to get your opinion on this.
Yeah, I do think I understand how the Sabres has some players that probably like rate out well in his model. And I think compared to some previous seasons, I think we're relying less on, completely unproven NHL talent. Like I know everyone thinks that, Benson has another level in his game, Kulik has another level in his game, but they've already played like, pretty effective NHL minutes so far, despite not scoring at a crazy rate. Like they've
Mhm.
been pretty decent at tilting the game in their team's favor, especially someone like Benson, whose underlyings are, just fantastic. Like he's someone who barely gives up any danger against when he's on the ice, and really helps his team kind of get the puck up ice, and he makes those smaller plays. And he's just got a great analytics history 2 years into his career. So I think having young players that already have that basis help as well, because it's less of like, how's this model going to project like just some random rookie coming like Middlestat after that season where he only gave us a handful of games after he signed for Minnesota. Like that's a lot more unpredictable. So I think it helps in that regard. And two, I think like someone like Josh Doan had great underlyings too, even though he didn't
Yeah.
score at a crazy rate. Like Kesselring too is, just
Yeah.
a solid average NHL defenseman. He's not someone that gets killed. And that's the other main thing too, is they cut off a lot of the excess fat on this team that was just like not great at hockey. Like I think Sabres have always had like one or two guys that have just gotten like absolutely obliterated every time they step down on the ice. Like we're talking about your Cody Eakins, like your Sabakas, your even last year Sam Lafferty. Uh, I think you could even throw Connor Clifton in there too, Eric
Yeah.
Johnson the year before.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately.
I think just getting rid of all those guys and not really having anyone projected in a lineup that's gotten absolutely killed. Like Connor Timmins, even though they overpaid for someone like him, he posted some solid NHL minutes for
Hmm.
Pittsburgh and Toronto recently, and they even think we're playing with Eric Carlson at one point in Pittsburgh. So I think that's a huge part. And like we went through our lineups earlier, and we were talking about how that third line is pretty good, and that first line too. It's not an NHL like top first line, but there's some good players on there, and
Yeah,
second line's kind of where the
yeah,
question marks is, but it's a roster filled with just solid players. Like maybe their ceiling's a little bit low, but I think just getting rid of those just bad players that kind of tank the Sabres' chances. Like we're talking about guys who are getting outshot like seven
pretty
to
bad.
three like every single
Yeah.
time they're on the ice. So as Sabres don't really have that anymore. So I think that really shows up in this model too.
All right. Well, there you go. So for the people listening, I'll actually read it out. For the Atlantic, they have Jay Fresh has Tampa Bay getting 102 points, Toronto 100, Florida 98, Ottawa 97, Buffalo 93, and then teams missing the playoffs is Boston 87, Detroit 83, Montreal 83. For the sake of it being the Eastern Conference playoffs, I'll do the Metro as well. Carolina with 104, New Jersey with 104, the Rangers with 92, and then that's it from the Metro that JFresh has making it. And then it'll be Washington with 90, so 3 less than the Sabres, Pittsburgh with 89, Columbus with 83, the Islanders with 81, and Philadelphia with 77. And my question to you, Walt, is are we overestimating other teams? Is it basically, and I was trying to explain this pre-show and I hopefully have nailed it. We'll see. Is it the Sabres need to be less bad than other quote unquote bad teams? And when I say bad teams, I mean teams that don't make the playoffs. Do they just need to be less bad than those teams? Or do the Sabres need to be better than a good team that just happens to not make the playoffs? What's your take on that?
Well, yeah, I do think there's going to be bad teams in the Eastern Conference that make it to the playoffs this season. Like, I don't really think there's any doubt about that. And I think looking at this graphic kind of really made me realize, like, wow, it's like Rangers aren't a great team. They're making the playoffs here. Like, Washington misses the playoffs, but they're not someone who I'm like banking on being able to repeat what they did last season.
But
So,
do you think? Well, my thing with what that was the most surprising one to me was Washington, and maybe Detroit, maybe in Montreal, maybe being a little bit for like 10 points away from the Sabres. I thought that was a little bit interesting. But the Washington one, I was like, look, they might not be able to repeat what they did last season, but I still think they can squeak into the playoffs. So I was curious what you think on that more specifically. Sorry to cut you off, but that
well,
is
yeah,
a
I mean,
very
I was
good.
thinking, like, even if you swap the two, it's like I don't think the Rangers are that good. So I like in my mind, I was just swapping the two and putting Washington in the Rangers spot. Like the Rangers
Okay.
got killed outside of the minutes that Adam Fox played. So I just don't really. I think you know someone's probably gonna clip this after the Rangers win the cup, but I think they could be like cooked for next season. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if like you could have swapped them in Washington, and then like looking at
Okay.
the rest of the Metro, it's like
It's okay.
Pittsburgh's gonna be bad. Columbus, Columbus is pretty much the Sabres, but in the Metropolitan. But I think the Sabres might have like a little bit of a higher ceiling. Uh, Islanders, not a great team at this point.
No.
Flyers are one team, I'm surprised to see them at 77 points because I really didn't think they were that bad last season. They had really good underlines too at 5-on-5. So it's
Yeah.
like a bit surprising to see them that far down. Like I think there's someone who could be like same categories as Sabres. But I mean, like I said, like whoever
I don't
sneaks into
know.
those last two playoff spots probably isn't that good of a hockey team. Like you don't have to be good to make it to the NHL playoffs anymore.
Yeah. Oh, we've
Like
been
with
harping about
32
that for
teams.
years. Yeah, we've been harping on that for years. I mean, the Flyers
Yeah.
for me, like maybe not 77, but I don't really think they're a real threat. Who knows? Again, I might be clipped by saying that too. I have a bunch of friends in Philadelphia too, so they'll be ecstatic to hear about that. So I just don't think they have
Yeah.
it.
Because it's like there's like
Just not yet.
32 teams now and like 16 make it. So like you would think it's harder to make it to the playoffs now, but like are the teams that make the playoffs really that good? I feel like I don't really look at any of these rosters and be like, oh wow, I can't believe player X is on their third line. This team's so deep. Like I just don't really think there's a lot of great teams in like the middle of the pack in the NHL where it's like if the Sabres have a miracle season, they can't be better than. So that's kind of my thing. I think it's really going to be the Sabres versus themselves this season. And I think it's been the same the past few seasons is that, at pretty much any
Mhm.
team in the NHL is good enough to beat any other team on any given night. And it's just about
Yeah.
consistency. Like it's just about winning more than you lose. Like, not having those losing streaks kind of snowball into something unmanageable. Like it's Sabres versus themselves. Like once again this season, like they're pretty much fighting against themselves to make it to the playoffs.
Like I said earlier this season, or excuse me, earlier this episode, it's going to be how they respond to adversity because it's going to hit. It hits every single team, but it's how the Sabres react to it. Are they going to lose 13 straight, or are they going to cut that off and nip that in the bud? Okay, so quickly, this was Jay Fresh's projection, and I wanted to show the difference between Jay Fresh's projection and this is now FanDuel's over/under projection that Jay Fresh has put out. This is starkly different, and I will read it out for the people that are just listening. Sabres do not make the playoffs. They don't even get freaking close. So again, according to FanDuel, over/under would be in the Atlantic. Florida has 107, Tampa Bay 103, Toronto 100, Ottawa 96, and that's it for the Atlantic. Then Montreal has 90, Detroit has 84, Buffalo has 81, and Boston has 77. For the Metro, Carolina 108, New Jersey 99, Rangers 96, Washington 96, Columbus 85, Islanders 85, Philadelphia 84, Pittsburgh 76. I hate to say it. I think as an overall, maybe not specifically for the Sabres, but as an overall, I think I kind of trust the FanDuel over under one. Like, I think Pittsburgh will be worse than Philadelphia. I think Columbus and the Islanders are about the same, I'd say. I was on the other one. I was surprised that Buffalo was ahead of Detroit and Montreal. And I think based on what we saw last season, I think we could see what we're seeing here as well. But I do think that Boston will probably be the worst team in the division. Will Florida get 107 points, especially with Tuch being out for so long? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But I think at least towards the bottom part of this, it's a little bit more accurate. Now, that's not saying I hope this comes true, because obviously I hope the Sabres make the playoffs. That'd be fantastic. And I think 81 might be a little harsh. But what's your thoughts on this as itself, and then in comparison to Jay Fresh's model? Because that's starkly different. I mean, that is a 12-point swing for the Sabres season total.
Yeah, I do think this is probably like closer to like what I was thinking of in my head. I do
Yeah.
think there's like some variables that the betting models are counting on that happened last season that probably won't happen again. So those are kind of unpredictable. So who really knows what's going to happen there? Yeah, I do think like the Atlantic. Like, I don't think Florida's a 107-point team. Like, they're not even like an incredible regular season team all the time, even throughout like their incredible era, like these past few seasons. And I do think, yeah, it's just so tough to like pinpoint the Sabre. Like, I think Boston's clearly the worst team in the Atlantic, but they also have David Pastrnak still, and he's an incredibly good hockey player and can pretty much win games himself at times. So I don't really know what to think about the bottom of the Atlantic, but yeah, I do think 81 points maybe a little harsh for the Sabres. Like, maybe I'd put them at like 85, just in my head, like not really based on anything, but yeah, I do think like the betting model though is closer to like what I'm kind of imagining in my head for how this season will pan out.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's just like we've mentioned, maybe the high end talent, at least on the forward side of things. They definitely have a talented defense core, but is that enough to lift the Sabres? And again, like I said, 81 might be, I don't know, a little harsh, but I think maybe in the middle of that 93 and 81. Maybe that's your sweet spot, maybe in like the 87 range or something like that. So obviously hope that's not the case. Hopefully they get as many points as possible and enough to get them into the playoffs. So that is it for point projections as well. So we did lineups, we did point projections. Let's talk about some individual players. And first up being Alex Tuch. This is from Chad D. Dominicis from Expected Buffalo. Shout out to Chad and Expected Buffalo. If you're not following them, fix it. So they're great. We appreciate what they do, and this is what we have from Chad on Alex Tuch. Don't have any confirmation that a deal is done yet. However, it sounds as though the Sabres and Tuch have made good progress towards a new deal. And then links to an article on Expected Buffalo. Obviously, follow them if you so choose. That's exciting. I think it's necessary for the Sabres to do. We have talked about what we think Tuch might get, and it might be a bit of a sticker shock, and especially when it comes to how late into his 30s the deal will go. But at the same time, I think it's something they just need to get done. And with him, hopefully the speed keeps up and he's a very good forechecker and someone, look, maybe if he's not playing on the top line, would certainly be someone that can fit in the middle of the lineup or even into the bottom six as he gets older. He has the obviously the frame for it and has the makeup for it, especially if the production drops off a little bit. So just wanted to get your thoughts on this real quick before we move on to the next one.
I think this is great news because, like we were talking about earlier, like it's Alex Tuch leaving will probably be the final straw for a lot of Sabres fans. So I think just him, kind of being willing to stay around is cool to see. And, he's a good hockey player. The cap's going up a ton. So, a lot of these long term deals won't really matter that much in the future. I like it. I think it'd be great to get this deal done early because, like we are talking about in prior episodes, like if this contract gets to the point where he's kind of waiting to see how the Sabres perform next season, I'd feel a lot more uncomfortable about him staying. So if they could get things done in September, I think that would be huge.
This is not unlike the Sabres to do. I think we've mentioned this on when we were talking about this more in depth. It is not unlike them to sign a guy once they get back or a week or two into training camp, something like that, but get it done before the season. So looking forward to that. Hopefully that is the case. And really looking forward to seeing term and money on it because Tuch, especially for him, it's probably going to be his last big contract. He was on quite the deal for whichever team he was playing for, whether it was Vegas or it was Buffalo. The deal that
Yeah.
he is finishing out this season, what sub 4.75 million for Alex Tuch? My gosh, what a deal. It does kind of chat my you know what that they didn't, use effective
Yeah.
cap space while he had such a low cap hit. But
He's making
still,
750K more than Jordan Greenway next
it's
season.
crazy. It's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I like Jordan Greenway. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, do we think? I think even at the time we mentioned, like, it was probably a little bit too much, but whatever. Like, cap's going up, and it is someone that can play in your bottom six. But it is kind of a bummer that he kind of gets hurt all the time because he is a good player when he's healthy. But Alex Tuch, he should be making way more than that. So really looking forward to seeing when they get that done because, like you said, I know a lot of fans would be quite upset if Alex Tuch wasn't re-signed. Actually, a thing on that I wanted to mention with Alex Tuch is if he does hold out, it's one of those things where does GM Kevin Adams want to be the guy that trades him, or do they just say, "Look, we're going to hold on to him. Hopefully, he comes back to us, and if he leaves, then we'll at least be able to say, like, hey, we did all we could to re-sign him. He said no, and he decided to go elsewhere." It's probably not going to help the Sabres case. Or would it be a case where if he doesn't, GM Kevin Adams isn't the GM anymore, and Yarmo Kekalainen comes in. He's like, I don't have any loyalty to you. Like, might not look good, but I'm trading you. So that's just something I thought about as of right now. According to Chad's message there, looks like things are trending in the right direction. So, was going to ask your opinion on that, but we'll save that until if the season starts and he hasn't been signed. It's something to talk about during the live stream for the home opener on October 9th. Subscribe on YouTube to be notified when that's coming up. Next person I wanted to talk about, Zach Benson. We're actually, excuse me, I said that a little quick. Zach Benson. We are recording actually while his Beyond Blue and Gold Carnival, taking him through and getting a sense of his off season and kind of his upbringing. And I'm just a big fan of the Beyond Blue and Gold, either whether it's for the comedic value of Taylor Hall taking them to the Stanley Cup, or the actual production value, which they do a good job. So that's what's going on right now as we're recording. But he is also eligible for an extension, and he hasn't signed one, and we haven't really heard too much about that. What is your thought on that? Personally, for me, before I hand it over, definitely not as worried because he's an RFA, and especially with them doing a whole Beyond Blue and Gold and stuff like that for him, and about him, and they've really been trying to push him on social media because they know that Sabres fans like him, as they should. I'm not very worried about it at all. When it comes to term and money, no clue, but wanted to get your take on Zach Benson not being signed yet, but you know, you're worried about that or lack thereof. And when do you think maybe a deal could be done? I'm thinking next summer, but what do you think?
They have been like pushing a lot of Zach Benson stuff on social media. There was someone in my comments that was like, maybe this is a sign they're trying to get a deal done early. Like, I don't necessarily think it's that, but he's someone where, I think if he gets like 60 points next season, I'd feel comfortable like handing him a blank check almost. Because like if he's just able to get that point total to like firmly top six levels while keeping like the same impacts he has on the game, like that's an extremely valuable player. And I think he's gonna have a great value contract regardless if he just has, a decent offensive season next year. So yeah, I think it'll probably more likely get done next season than this season because I think Benson realizes that he'll probably be given more offensive opportunities this season with Paterka no longer on the team and with him being a year older. So yeah, if I'm Benson, I'm waiting until next offseason. But it's cool to see Sabres kind of like show some appreciation for Zach Benson with this like new blue and gold embedded video because I think he's definitely arguably the most fun personality on the Sabres team right now. And I think the carnival stuff with him was really cool. And I don't think every Sabres fan really knows about it. So it'll be fun to watch this episode.
He's just a goof. He's just a goof.
Yeah.
He's our little goof, and I'm really looking forward to watching that. I'll watch that after we're done recording and mixing and getting all that stuff done. So, really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to seeing Zach Benson back on the ice with the boys and watching him getting under under people's skin. It's so good. You just know he's just going to do a little ratty
Yeah.
thing all the time. You're just like, oh my gosh, this little guy. So, it plays with the heart of a giant. So big fan, obviously, and looking forward to whenever he signs that extension. I'm not, like I said, not too worried about it. Last player we're going to talk about before we wrap things up is Owen Power. There is a article that came out from the Sabres and had some quotes with him. I know earlier this summer we were talking about like, hey, Sabres really need to get off to a good start, defense, blah, blah, blah. And hey, like Owen Power was hurt. I believe it was April 12th, like towards the end of the season, last couple games, maybe I think I saw something like the fourth last game of the season, and it didn't look good. We're like, what's going? We didn't really hear too much about it, but I was worried about that, and not having a summer to kind of train or having to rehab all that. I was worried. Well, it comes out today, he avoided surgery. It's a good thing. And two, apparently rehab went pretty well, and he was able to get into the gym a little bit more, a little bit less on ice stuff simply because he was in the gym a little bit more rehabbing, but getting especially a bigger, young, but bigger framed guy, or at least tall, to get some more muscle onto his frame will definitely help him specifically, especially for those, including myself, that say, Power, we need you to be a little bit more physical. Wanted to read one quick thing before I get your thoughts on whatever you wanted to say about Owen Power. Was able to rehab it pretty quickly and get back to doing most things in a fairly quick time. Um, was that? I feel like I had more meat on the bone there, but that's what I had written down. So apologies. But that was the biggest quote for me. It was like, look, I was worried about it, surgery or not, how long this was going to keep him out. Sounds like it didn't. So, like I said, really looking forward to seeing just kind of, and he also kind of talked about confidence when it comes to, having a little bit of stronger body and being able to get in the gym a little bit longer. And that's true. Like there's only so much stuff you can do on ice, but building your body and feeling comfortable in your skin and comfortable in your skates out there is, I think, really key, especially for a taller young defenseman where sometimes it's like they look a little awkward or they can get muscled off the puck. So, Walt, any thoughts on Owen Power coming up? Obviously, it's good news, but is there anything else that you wanted to mention? Maybe how we could work well with Kesselring or something. Anything Owen Power related, have at it.
Yeah, I think for me, like he's always been someone like every time he's brought up, like I think he's fine. Like I don't really think there's much he needs to add to his game to continue to be like a good defenseman. I think he's already a good defenseman, especially in terms of driving offense for his team. Like, sure, he's not perfect. And I think that's where most people's concerns are with him, where it's like maybe if he was a little bit better defensively, more physical, he'd be really good. I mean, if he was really good defensively and really physical, he'd probably be like a top 10 defenseman in the NHL right now, like quite easily. So I think that's kind of where people kind of want to see his game go. But if he never adds those elements, I still think he's a pretty good defenseman, and I'd be fine with him on the Sabres for the rest of this contract. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he plays next season, and he'll definitely have kind of a better variety of defense partners to play with. Like, he's had some pretty bad defense partners in previous seasons. So,
Yeah.
and I mean,
Like,
the other thing is too, like if you play with Darlene, like if you want to see what Darlene looks like with a legitimate good defenseman, like his minutes with Darlene are like they just pretty much
they're
toy
really
around
good.
with other NHL teams, which is like that's such a good combo to have. And like hopefully have more of these this season, but like kind of late game situations where you're close. Like the game's not over. Like you're maybe down a goal and you're still in it. Like I'd love to see more games like those for the Sabres where it feels like they have a fighting chance every night, even when they're losing. And that's when Darlene and Power will be like just fantastic in those situations.
Yeah, just specifically on your point of just better partners to play with. Everyone's really penciling in Kessel Ring, including myself. What if it doesn't work? Well, then you have Connor Timmins possibly. I'm not going to say Samuelson. Samuelson, if you're going to make the lineup, just be a third pairing defenseman and try not to fall over your own feet out there. You know, like you said, you have Darlene and Power. Who knows? Byram and Kesselring could end up being something that works out, and the whole narrative Byram being away from Darlene is a nightmare that could quickly go away. So different combinations. Again, we'll be seeing that. They'll probably try it out at least in the preseason just to see. But like I said, last couple games of the preseason really start to hone in on lines, deep pairings, probably get a pretty good sense of what's going on there. So, well, actually, a lot of positive news. I'm happy to say. I mean, besides the stark difference between Jay Fresh's prediction and FanDuel's, but pretty
Yeah.
positive episode. I'm proud of us. I'll just put that out there right now. Again, try to be fair though, and if we are seeing things that are going wrong or of concern, we'll obviously point them out. But I'm looking forward to the season, no matter what happens. Like you said, fresh slate. Hopefully, things don't creep up from years past if things start going wrong. But I really want this team to make the playoffs, man. I really want this to be the season.
Yeah.
Even if we're predicting that it won't be, that doesn't mean we don't want it to happen. We're just trying to be as honest as we can. So I think that's it. I will be taking the final word today. So Walt, anything that you wanted to address with the fans out there? Just anything at all? You can talk about USA soccer doing terribly and playing Japan right now. Yeah, Japan right now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess nothing much. Like, I think with the Sabres, it's just, once again, it kind of feels like deja vu. It feels like we're in the same conversations heading into last season. So, yeah, hopefully we just get a better outcome and we'll have, kind of a more fun season of podcasting.
Absolutely. And like I said, final word is we will have a lot more episodes coming up, especially in the season. I'm going to try to do our weekly podcast again. Probably going to circle back next week, prior to training camp, but after the Prospects Challenge, just to check in, hang out a little bit. And lastly, again, really looking forward to seeing everyone for the season opener I almost said August, on October 9th. Walt and I will be live streaming, hanging out. Please come by, say hello. Let's joke around, and hopefully Sabres come up with a big win against the Rangers. So for Walt, I'm Bill. This has been the Sabremetrix podcast. We appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.